We will now explain the concepts of attribute and attribute type for a UML class diagram. Let's look again at our students. We have a lot of students at the university, and in order to be able to distinguish one student from another, we will make use of certain characteristics of the students, like for example their names or their student number. So it means that every individual object can be described by means of a number of attributes. So objects are described by means of attributes, and each of these attributes can have a value. And the values are specific for the instance they belong to. So for example, student has an attribute name, and each individual student has a value for the attribute name, like John or Lisa or Pete. So here's another example. You have the class product. It has an attribute number, and an individual instance of the class product will have a value for that number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The class has an attribute name, and then you can have a value for that name, like Milky Way. And the same for the short description, the long description, and the amount in stock. Moreover, each attribute has a data type. So it means that the values that can be given for a particular attribute can be constrained. You can give a type like integer, float, text, string, boolean. So for example, in the above example of product, the attribute number has been defined as of the type integer. So the number, the value that you give to number, needs to be a whole number. On the other hand, the long description has the attribute, the data type text, so it means that you can give a whole text as value for the long description. In a UML class diagram, the attributes and their data types are written in a box below the class's name. So like you see here on the left side. For the instance on the right side, we can simply see the list of values that this instance has for the different attributes. In Microsoft Access, you will find the attributes when you look at the description of the different tables that you have in your database. And if you open the Design tab for a particular table, then you will see a list of attributes called fields in Microsoft Access, and then for each of those fields or attributes you find data type. So you see here that employee ID is of data type number, that employee name is of data type text, and that employee unit ID is of type number. In Microsoft Excel, you will find the attributes as the headings of the different columns, and the attribute values are then the values that you find in the different cells. Each row represents an instance, and then you can find all the values this instance has for a certain attribute. The data type is what you find as the format of a particular cell. So here you see how the cell C2 has been formatted as a number. A main difference with Microsoft Access is that in Microsoft Access and in any other database, an attribute has a data type, and this data type holds for all the values for that attribute. Here in Microsoft Excel, in theory, in column C, the different rows could have a different data type for their cells. This is obviously not desirable, but it's possible. Now, why are data types important? Well, the data type determines permissible operations on the values of an attribute. So let's look at the example here. In column C, you see that a number of available amounts have been recorded for budgets. In row number 7, we attempt to make a sum of those available amounts by summing over the cells C3 to C6. But the result is a 0, which is not correct. The reason why you get a 0 rather than a real available amount is because of the fact that the cells C3 to C6 have been formatted as text. So their data type is text, which means they are not available for arithmetic operations like a sum.